were very much helped by AJR staff and AJR faculty. We had particular help in communications from AJR alum Rabbi Erwin Huberman and AJR student Jill Minkoff. We are so grateful to the presenters and all of the breakout leaders who came from, some from very far away to join us. I would like to also thank a special friend of AJR, Moshe Horn, who consulted with us from the beginning and was very generous with his time and with his creative thinking. And we also want to thank our partner today, Cloud, who was also very helpful to us in a whole slew of different ways, some of which will be obvious and a whole lot of which really are not obvious. And in addition, just please be advised that there is video recording going on, so you should know that, and we think that's really important, and that's how important we think this conference is. So for those of you who don't know who we are, I would like to just take a minute to tell you who we are at AJR and what we do. AJR is a 55-year-old pluralistic rabbinical and cantorial school. And our students and our faculty are pretty much as diverse as they come. And the diversity is expressed in almost any way you can think of. So whether it's in age, or whether they are first or second career students, or they come part-time or full-time, where they stand on the Jewish spectrum of movements, or those who don't feel like they fit into any movements, etc., etc. And so we're very grateful for this diversity and to know what it does for us as an institution. And what we are able to do because of this diversity is part of our mission, but also how we live our mission. And what I mean by that is, we talk about ourselves as a pluralistic institution. But what does that mean? Pluralism is a big word now. When AJR started using the word pluralism, it wasn't such a big word. Now it's a word all over the place, which we're thrilled about. But everyone does pluralism a little bit differently. So what is AJR pluralism? And I think I would say basically there are two main elements that I would focus on. One is that there is just a principled humility that we don't claim that any one of us is really able to know God's will. And so we truly not only respect, but cherish and recognize as legitimate many different approaches to Jewish life. So that's one. It's more than being able to sit around the table together. It's a cherishing that goes beyond that. And the other element that I would say is very important to us is that we try very hard to be a place that lives pluralism. And we're willing to have things be very complicated for us. And as an example, many times when you go to a pluralistic event or institution, you hear about multiple minyanim. And multiple minyanim and the ability to have these choices is what makes it pluralistic. But what we do at AJR in terms of davening is that we agree that we are going to follow who's ever leading the davening. And they can choose how they're going to lead, and we all agree that we're going to follow. And sometimes we like it, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes we're comfortable, and sometimes we're not. But what we know is we always learn. And we always enjoy the experience of learning, whether we enjoy the experience of davening or not. And so we learn about ourselves, and we learn about others. And that's basically our belief in how we should live as a pluralistic community. It's complicated and it can be messy, but it's exciting. So why are we holding this conference? Just to give you a tiny bit of history, because I'm just trying to frame it today before we have all these wonderful speakers. And this is really well known, but it would be wrong not to say it. The Reconstructionist movement endorsed patrilineal descent back in 1968, and the Reform movement endorsed it in 1983. Now, they each did it a little bit differently, and there's a lot of issues related to that, and in your packets you have information about it. But that was very movement-based. So the question is, things have changed in the world since 83 or 68. are living in these communities where we intersect all the time with those who are different from us or who have different ideas than we do. So as we started working on this, when we first started, we thought, oh, this is really interesting, and we're going to find out how complicated it is all over the place. And in our first phone calls, which were many, all we were told was, this is not an issue for anybody, don't worry, you should not have this conference. There's nothing to say. And when we tried to push, it took 3, 4 conversations until people would say, oh, you know, maybe there really was a problem once. Or maybe we once had an issue that something happened, but really we're fine. So what did they really mean when they said they were fine? And what we learned that they meant is that there's just really not a lot of discussion about this in the Jewish community. So those who come from the Reform movement or from a more liberal stance didn't even think to ask, and I say many didn't, obviously some didn't think to ask if there were those here who did not accept them as Jewish. It didn't dawn on them to ask. And those who came from a more traditional standpoint didn't think to ask if this group was also including those from patrilineal descent. So the reason it wasn't a problem is because no one was talking about it. And no one was recognizing. And as we started pushing, we found, yes, most organizations that consider themselves communal, whether it's Hillel or JCCs or non-movement day schools, non-movement camps, Birthright, Jaded, etc., except patrilineal descent. But yet, when you push, you find, yeah, there really are problems arising. And there are problems such as people who live their whole lives very involved in the Jewish community, take on leadership positions, and then out of the blue are told that they're not Jewish and that they're not welcome to have an aliyah. We see examples of community schools where kids go to the prom or want to go to the prom together with a fellow student, and then parents feel very stuck because now their kids are interdating from their point of view within the Jewish school. So what do they do in those situations? We have people who are feeling marginalized by the Jewish community because they're being told that their very identity is suspect. And then we have others who are being marginalized by the Jewish community because they're being told that because they believe in halakha, that they're prejudiced and that they don't understand others, and they are being made to feel marginalized as well. So on every side, we are seeing people feeling that they don't belong, and that they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to function. And then we see how many people's approach is actually very nuanced and not black and white. For example, we have people who, and these are all real stories that I'm telling you, who are very happy that their institution accepts patrilineal descent, but personally, they're not willing to. We have people who don't accept patrilineal Jews, but once there's a famous someone, like Congresswoman Gabby Giffords or a National League MVP Ryan Braun, they say they're Jewish. We have people who accept patrilineal Jews and would never want to tell anyone who thinks they are Jewish that they are not, but then make their own fiancé convert, because they wouldn't marry unless he converted. And this is my favorite one. We have someone who didn't accept patrilineal Jews as Jewish, but would not allow them to be their Shabbos boy. So, very complex. And what we see is that it gets so complicated because identity is at the essence of everything, right? Identity is the bedrock of the issue, and it's on all sides. And what we're struggling with is that pluralism and inclusiveness are not the same thing. And that many people think that the two as the same, but they're not. Because whatever decision you make on patrilineal descent, you are including some people and not including others. And that's just the nature of this conversation. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind. So how do we move forward? And how do we move forward today? So I sit here looking out at all these very warm, lovely faces and remember all the people who warned me that this is such a hot button topic that we all have to be careful. But I'm enjoying feeling the warmth from the faces. I think we're okay. But what we want to really emphasize is that we want this to be an honest and open conversation and one done with respect and with thought, but at the same time, willing to express your feelings. So we're not asking anyone to censor themselves from important thoughts, but we are urging everyone to really express yourself with understanding of the others in the room, because there are real hot-button topics going on here. Circumcision is a major issue in discussions of Jewish identity, and I'm not going to talk about it here. But the reason I bring it up is because in the Bible, circumcision is not only discussed literally, but is discussed metaphorically. And we are told that we have to beware of uncircumcised hearts, which in the Bible means minds, and uncircumcised lips and uncircumcised ears. And I think what we want to go after here is a conversation. At HAR, we always talk about ourselves as the Makom Torah, a place of Torah, a sacred community. And today, we're hoping that we will all make the effort to make this process holy by circumcising our minds, our lips, and our ears. And let's all agree to think and to speak and to listen with compassion and with openness and with respect. And thus truly to have a valuable and important conversation for Klal Yisrael. Thank you.